Words shape us. From the time we are born, the things we hear from those around us leave lasting impressions. But when the words are harsh, dismissive or critical, especially from our parents, they leave scars that we carry throughout our lives. For many men, the weight of these words goes unspoken, hidden beneath layers of emotional suppression. Today we'll dive into 8 toxic things parents often say to their children and explore how these phrases damage emotional health, with a special focus on the long-term impact on men's mental well-being. Comparisons may seem harmless or even motivating, but the reality is far more damaging. When a parent asks, "Why can't you be more like your sibling?" what they are truly saying is who you are isn't good enough. For a boy, this can trigger a deep-rooted sense of inadequacy. Growing up, he may constantly compare himself to others, trying to match up but always feeling like he falls short. These feelings of inadequacy don't just disappear with age. In fact, they intensify as men step into adulthood. A man who's lived under constant comparison might overwork himself, striving endlessly to prove his worth to others. Or he may give up entirely, believing he will never be enough. This cycle of comparison fosters anxiety, low self-esteem, and even depression, as men internalize the belief that they are somehow lesser. But it's not just about their self-worth. This toxic mindset infiltrates relationships, work, and life decisions. Men who have lived under comparison may struggle to form healthy bonds because they constantly feel they must compete to be valued. One of the most common and harmful things a parent can say is, "Stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about." In a single sentence, the child learns that their emotions are not only unwelcome, but punishable. For boys, this message is particularly toxic. Society already tells men to hide their emotions, but when this message comes from a parent, it solidifies the idea that emotions are dangerous, weak, and shameful. As boys grow into men, they internalize the idea that expressing sadness or vulnerability is unacceptable. They become experts at hiding their pain, bottling it up inside until it manifests in unhealthy ways, through anger, isolation, or even substance abuse. Emotionally stifled men struggle in relationships, unable to express their feelings openly and honestly. This leads to misunderstandings, emotional distance, and an inability to connect deeply with others. Over time, the constant suppression of emotions can also lead to mental health challenges like anxiety, depression, and explosive anger, leaving men trapped in a cycle where vulnerability feels like a threat and emotional expression is a distant dream. When a parent says, "You'll never amount to anything," they strip away a child's sense of hope and possibility. For a boy, hearing this often plants the seeds of self-doubt that grow into a forest of insecurity. As men, those who have heard this toxic message tend to live in a constant state of self-sabotage. They might not even try to achieve their dreams, assuming from the start that they're destined to fail. If they do try, the fear of failure hovers over them like a dark cloud, holding them back from realizing their potential. Even when they succeed, that nagging voice whispers that it's only a matter of time before they fail again. This toxic belief leads to a mental prison. Men either push themselves to exhaustion trying to prove their worth, or they stagnate, paralyzed by the fear of confirming the belief that they are destined for nothing. This toxic mindset not only damages their careers, but also destroys personal growth, creating a cycle of self-doubt and defeatism that can be hard to break. The shame of sensitivity. You're too sensitive. When a child is told you're too sensitive, they begin to doubt the validity of their emotions. For boys, this is especially cruel, as sensitivity is often labeled as weakness in society. Boys who are told they're too sensitive grow up ashamed of their natural emotional responses. They learn to bury their feelings, put on a stoic mask, and never let their guard down. Over time, these boys become men who struggle to access or even recognize their emotions, let alone share them with others. In relationships, this emotional disconnection can lead to loneliness, even when they are surrounded by people. They may feel isolated, misunderstood, or incapable of forming deep emotional bonds because they've been trained to believe that their emotions are something to hide. Long-term, this emotional repression can lead to serious issues, including anxiety, depression, and relationship breakdowns. The weight of worthlessness. You're useless. Telling a child you're useless cuts deeper than most realize. It's not just a statement, it's a label that becomes a core part of the child's identity. Boys who hear this grow into men who doubt their abilities at every turn. The impact of this toxic phrase lingers into adulthood, where men might feel the need to overachieve in everything they do, constantly proving both to themselves and to others that they are not useless. But no matter how much they accomplish, that sense of worthlessness follows them, undermining every success. On the other hand, some men internalize this belief so deeply that they stop trying altogether, convinced they will only ever fail. This belief doesn't just affect their careers, it touches every part of their lives. Relationships, personal goals, and even their sense of self become defined by a fear of being inadequate. The constant push and pull between wanting to succeed and fearing failure wears down men's mental health, often leading to burnout, depression, or anxiety. The dismissal of struggle? You should be grateful. When parents tell their children you should be grateful, as a way to dismiss their struggles, they undermine the child's need to express pain and difficulty. For boys, this message reinforces the idea that their feelings don't matter, that they should just deal with it quietly. As these boys grow into men, they adopt a similar mindset. They internalize the idea that their problems aren't valid and that they should be grateful for what they have, regardless of their struggles. This leads to emotional numbness, where men feel unable to acknowledge their pain, much less talk about it. Eventually, the emotional numbness takes a toll on their mental health, making it difficult to form genuine connections with others and leaving them feeling disconnected and unworthy of support. It's a vicious cycle where men feel isolated in their struggles because they've been conditioned to believe their pain isn't important. The label of disappointment, you're a disappointment. Being told you're a disappointment is perhaps one of the most damaging things a parent can say. It's not just about failing to meet expectations, it's about failing to be worthy of love and approval. For boys, this phrase becomes a constant weight on their shoulders as they grow into men. The fear of disappointing others can drive them to extremes, overworking themselves, pushing themselves to perfection, or avoiding challenges entirely out of fear. But no matter what they do, that fear of failure lingers, and they constantly question whether they'll ever be good enough. This feeling of inadequacy can become crippling, leading to procrastination, low self-esteem, and anxiety. The fear of being a disappointment shapes how men interact with the world, always trying to prove themselves, but never feeling they've succeeded. The burden of responsibility. You're the reason for my stress. Perhaps the most heartbreaking thing a child can hear is, "You're the reason for my stress." This phrase makes a child feel responsible for their parents' emotional well-being, a burden no child should carry. For boys, this message reinforces the idea that they must be the fixers, the ones who bear the emotional weight of others. As men, they grow up believing it's their job to fix everything and everyone, often at the expense of their own emotional health. They neglect their own needs, feeling guilty for asking for help or expressing their struggles. This self-sacrificial mindset leads to burnout, resentment, and emotional exhaustion. The pressure of feeling responsible for others' well-being can also lead to relationship struggles, as men feel trapped in roles where they constantly give but never receive. Over time, this imbalance can cause significant emotional and mental health issues, including stress, anxiety, and even depression. Toxic words don't just vanish with time. They leave marks that last a lifetime. For men, growing up in an environment where their emotions are dismissed, criticized, or ignored can shape their entire emotional landscape. But healing is possible. Recognizing these toxic patterns is the first step to breaking free from them. If you grew up hearing these phrases, understand that your feelings are valid. You are not defined by the words spoken over you. By acknowledging the harm done, you take the first step toward healing and reclaiming your emotional well-being.